Becky, thanks for coming on the Gravel Cycling Australia podcast.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, no worries. Glad we could get it done at some point.
Finally make it work. Yeah, I think we've been in contact for a few months now, trying to get you on. But yeah, it's great to finally have you. And what a time as well. You've just wrapped up Unbound a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, we'll get to that and cover your big day out. Most people will know you if they're following the gravel race scene at all, particularly here in Australia, but now in the US as well. I think your background's sort of been covered. You've been on some other podcasts in the last couple of years where you sort of talked about that. But so I don't want to rehash too much of that. But I guess just as for a quick background for people who don't know you, you're I guess a career, maybe not a career, but a long time mountain biker here in Australia and internationally as well. And the last few years, you've tackled the gravel scene.
Yeah, I've done a bit of everything over the years, but yeah, I started out pretty firmly on the mountain bike, and then we've done some road races along the way, ones that I enjoy, here in Oz mostly, and then yeah, marathon racing on the mountain bike, and then yeah, on the gravel is when that came about. It's something that really suits a lot of us, whether you're on the fringe of the road or you're a fringe kind of mountain biker. You can jump in there, and it's a bit of a it's a new kind of niche for a lot of people, and yeah, that's certainly myself. So yeah, it's been where I've sort of been at that, and still with marathon sort of mountain biking. In the last 5 or so years. So it's I'm glad for the arrival of gravel racing, that's for sure.
Do you remember when gravel sort of first came into your conscience?
Um, yeah, I do. It was a lot of us like mountain bikers, I think, had a bit of an opinion that we've been doing this a long time. It was like a new discovery, but um, and that sort of rang true for quite a while. But now, for sure, it stands on its own 2 feet, and that was more of a from a bike perspective, thinking that, a hardtail mountain bike that we rode. I mean, I grew up riding fire trails, gravel roads. That's literally how I got into cycling, was back home, down the coast of New South Wales. That's what we would do. We didn't have like trails as such, but we would just go out on the gravel roads, and there's so many hundreds of kilometers of gravel roads hit down there, and a lot of places in Australia actually. So yeah, it was something that I've always done, and then yeah, but as it kind of started to stand on its own 2 feet, and the tech, like the bikes, actually got more appropriate for the use, it's like, well, this is actually its own thing, and now it's just really cool. I think, yeah, like I say, the bikes are cool to set up for each of the different events, and like you're it's not so much like the bike is made for what we're doing, and you don't feel like at any stage you should be really on a mountain bike or a road bike. It's often that yeah, it's its own thing now, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I actually sort of got into cycling through gravel, so I sort of it's cool to hear people who've been cycling for a long time, sort of how they saw that transition happen.
Yeah, and I remember getting a bike, I think, or maybe I had a like a cross bike, and I did a couple of rides to Tumut, say, with some friends or whatever, and this sort of thing. But for the faster rides, or the rides I was still more motivated for, I would take my hardtail mountain bike and go and do it then. But then there were some races come about, and it just felt silly not to ride your gravel bike in the gravel race. So and that was probably at something like the Otway, the Sunday race there. I think one time I took both bikes and did that on the Sunday. And that was probably the first time I got into it and did actually a gravel event. But yeah, I mean, we don't have so many races here yet still. So a lot of, like, when I got to the Lifetime last year, that was, probably still within my first maybe 10 gravel races when I started doing that. So, but for someone like me who's done a lot of mountain biking, a lot of road racing, it's not so hard to kick off and get into it. I find, and there's a lot of people who are similar.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned the Lifetime Grand Prix there. I was keen to sort of get your history and your story about how that all came about last year. Obviously, last year was the first year it was run, and you were one of the inaugural participants. Can you sort of tell the story about how that all came about?
Yeah, well, it ran the year before, so this is the third year they're in at the moment. I applied the first year, but not really with a good application. Um, and not really with a intent on being able to do it. Like it's a pretty big undertaking, and I didn't have anything set up to be able to take it on if I had been selected. So it was more just to, I guess, check it out and see what the process was like. And then yeah, in 20 end of 2022, I applied again, and actually sort of halfway through that year, I finished up with work, and I wanted to just have a full tilt at National Road Championships and train properly and full time for that. Um, and while I was doing that, I applied, did a really solid application for the Grand Prix. So it's like a application process. You fill out a bunch of questions, and they really want to grow the sport in the US and build it up, from the ground with us athletes. So the application is sort of based around that, and then obviously there's other aspects as your results, Palmeiras, and how you can kind of contribute to that growth over there. Um, and yeah, I got in. And then that was sort of like, I think it was end of the year, like December, and then I just kind of planned it out from there how I'd make it work, and yeah, had a reasonable year in the first running, and then yeah, we're back this year. So.
Were Giant on board with you sort of through that whole process? Were they sort of telling you when you applied that yeah, we'll back it, we'll get you over there and sort of go through the year with you? Was that always part of the plan?
Yeah, well, I mean, Giant are on board with whatever I want to do, pretty much. I've always had that. I've been really lucky. Um, Different things I've wanted to try along the way. I've always had support from Giant, um, and this was no different. And it was really nice to be pretty early, even before. That first time the time I got in, so it's end of 2022. When I was applying, I got in touch through Giant Oz with the guys in the US, so they had a pretty good feel on the series and what was involved and what we needed to do to get in, and also to undertake it, and to be good at the races, and what kind of support we needed, this sort of thing. So yeah, off the bat, I had great support, and really grateful that they were able to like link me in so quickly, and now it's the second home there for me with the Giant guys, and we've got a really it's got a small team, but it's tight knit, and it's great to hang out with these guys at the races, and also they do a great job with support and mechanics and planning and all this. So yeah, I couldn't be happy with them.
Do you think it's been sort of almost an advantage for you coming from, like, you've never really been, I guess, a world tour pro cyclist or something like that, and the guys who are coming from that scene, I guess they have to adapt to a bit more of a privateer lifestyle, be a bit more, resourceful off their own bat, but that's probably something you've sort of been doing your whole cycling life, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's what's really cool about the Grand Prix and gravel racing as a whole. I think you get people from all walks of the sport. Like 20-year pros in the World Tour, guys like myself who've dabbled in a bit of everything, or there might be people out of the Mountain Bike World Cup. I know a lot of the women are there as well, in the Mountain Bike World Cup sort of scene, and jumping into the gravel and adapting to what the demands that the Grand Prix requires. But yeah, like you say, for me, it's the way I've always gone racing. Either by myself or with a small team, and it's easy, and it's a joy to be a part of. Whereas maybe for some of the guys who are used to having that full team support and a team of 7 or 8 riders or whatever on the road and buses and all this, it's a change. But also the racing is a change for them too. It's a different level of racing. It's a different. I think it's still a very high level, but it's just gone about differently to, say, a road race, or it's its own thing now, which is cool.
Yeah. So looking back at your first year over there in the US last year, you had some really solid results. He ended up finishing 7th in the Lifetime Grand Prix, which is a really great result. I think would you say you sort of had some ups and downs along the way, and what did you sort of learn from that experience as the sort of first time over there?
Yeah, it was a good year. I mean, like you say, I had some ups and downs, and seventh to salvage seventh was really good. I mean, I think I set out with a goal of top five, but um, that was ambitious, I'd say. And then yeah, just with the level there, and but yeah, to come out with seventh at the end of the year, and with some of the results I had, which were terrible, in the middle of the season, was actually really surprising for me. And yeah, I was proud that I was able to do that because yeah, I mean I went there with a goal to be good enough and make something of it and go back again this year and years to come. So I did that in the end, but certainly halfway through the year, it wasn't looking likely. And yeah, I mean that was just due to this new thing for me, which is racing and training at really high altitude, which is obviously in Australia we don't have much exposure to. So I've raced at altitude before, but yeah, it's a new level, especially in some of the races in Colorado. It's a really insane level of altitude and something that without years of adaptation, I feel like it's really hard to be good at. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
basically,
when I was talking to Tasman last year, he was sort of doing a bit of a preview of the races that he had coming up. I think we were looking at Leadville, and I think that whole race happens above the highest point of like the Tour de France. So when you put it in that
yeah,
context, like
yeah.
it's kind of nuts.
It's even uncomfortable to be. So Leadville itself, where the start of the race is, it's all above 3,000 meters. Um, but it's just uncomfortable even to exist in that town,
Mm.
for someone who hasn't had much exposure to it. Yeah, and I think the start of the season was good. Like Ciota, the mountain bike race, I was okay there. I wasn't like awesome, but I was in the top 10. And it sort of was disaster from Unbound. I had that mechanical really early on in the race there, and then what happened was though, like you train for Unbound, and I think in the block that I did for Unbound last year was I did 90 hours in 3 weeks, and then had a week off and went to the lighter week and went to the race and did the race. But um, with that frustration in the race, the day after the race, I went to Colorado Springs and started training right away for the next one, and barely rested just from that training block. Even though the race didn't kind of happen for me or whatever, I still should have rested for a week or two, especially
Mm.
just arriving at altitude so soon. And but I guess with that frustration, I just got really stuck into it. And yeah, my coach at the time was happy to kind of toe the line with that, and we just messed it up, and I got in such a hole like I've never ever been before. I've raced for coming on 20 years, I think now, and yeah, at least 10 or 15, at a high level. So it's something I never experienced before, to be in such a slump of form, and that was just due to overdoing it in the altitude. And that's, I guess, my biggest learning from over there. And yeah, that's in the first year. But I don't know if it's something I'm ever going to be that good at, racing at altitude. And I think with maybe years and years of adapting, maybe I could be, but it's a challenge now at this point in my career yeah, to think that maybe I can be a really good racer at altitude and a good trainer there. It's tough. So maybe it's something I just have to kind of deal with, and some of those races I just need to yeah, just approach as a B race and just do the best I can.
How have you like what have you changed this year? I guess with your preparation for altitude, have you sort of put in place a new plan for the sort of high altitude races coming up?
Yeah, well, yeah, but not really with the goal of nailing it. I think I can be really good in the first two races of the year, Seattle and Unbound. pressure. The race in Utah, the third round is just not for me. It's high altitude. It's two massive climbs, 1.5 hours long each. I think even if that was at sea level, it would be a B race. So I'm actually going to miss that race because otherwise I'd be back there now already trying to prepare. And I want to spend some time at home this year as well. And I will go over, obviously, for Leadville. It's an important race and it's something I can't miss, but I think it's still, again, always going to be a B race for me. So I'll be there and hopefully bag some points. But thankfully with the Grand Prix, you can actually drop 2 races. So my first 2 races so far are not so bad with 5th and 7th. I'm in a reasonable spot, 5th in the overall now. I will obviously drop well out of that once I miss this race, but once we get 5 races in the bank, it kind of all comes out in the wash and everyone's where they'll be. But yeah, I think it's a good plan. I think for me, I have Gravel Nationals this weekend, and I can take a small rest and then start some work for Leadville, but not with the pressure of being really good there. More of a goal of the last 3 races, which actually do really suit me. And coming off a rested period in the middle of the year, I can be really strong in October for the last couple, like I was last year as well. So yeah, I think it's a good plan, and it's a bit refreshing to be able to have to miss this round. It's like from a PR standpoint and just being there, it's not great to miss a race, but I think it can be forgiven given that from where I'm doing this series from, it's not easy from Australia. For sure, if I lived in the US, I'd be there. No worries. But yeah, I'm happy with my approach, and I think it really will bode well for a good end of the year. Some of those guys go really hard in this period with the altitude, and then it catches up with them towards the end of the year. So I don't have to do that, fortunately, and I can be a bit more relaxed now and then push towards the end.
Yeah, cool. I guess obviously gravel racing over in the US, a lot of those are super long events. Like we're talking 10 hours at Unbound. A lot of the other races are sort of real epics as well. Was that something you had to adapt to, sort of coming from, you've obviously done marathon mountain biking, but I think even this is sort of upping it a bit. Did you have to sort of adapt to a different nutrition strategy or different training programs? Like how'd you go about that preparation?
Yeah, at first it's very daunting, especially, Unbound is the main one, but then, what happens is then the rest of the races, which can be 6 or 7 hours, some of the other races outside the Grand Prix, it's over 200 Ks. So they become kind of like not so long now, but no, it's daunting at first, especially Unbound, and like thinking in the first year I did it, I was very much looking at what everyone else was doing for training and being very caught up in that. But what I learned from that first year of actually training for it was the first long ride I did. I think I did a 10-hour day, 300 Ks or something, but in the last hour and a half I did like 4 Black Mountains, which is a hill out here. A 10-minute hill, and my numbers in this final efforts for over 10 minutes were, some of the best I've ever done, and this is my first ride over probably 7 to 6 hours, so I took that into this year and actually kind of realized that I don't need to do so many of these 10-hour days. I know I can be good. Just off the bat, just my physiology obviously is not bad for that. So I think initially, it's daunting to think you have to do that, but once you know what you're capable of, I think it was a bit more refreshing this year to kind of apply that. And I don't even think I did a 9-hour ride. I think I did maybe 1 or 2 8-hour days. The rest sort of 6 hours. But I also raced a lot into Unbound this year. I did 4 weeks of racing on the road, 2 of those in the US and then WA, and closer to home in Wagga with Marathon Nationals. And then I did one like 35-hour week, and then got on the plane and went over there and raced. And I was in great shape there. So yeah, it's daunting, but I guess, yeah, like you say, maybe the most daunting thing is the preparation. Like the nutrition and all this kind of thing. Um, Certainly, that's a new experience, and it takes some fine tuning. But I think I'd never say I'm on top of it, but yeah, I feel like I'm more comfortable with it now for sure.
Yeah. So going back this year for a second, yeah, well, we should say, like as you said, a little bit of a form slump perhaps in the middle of last year, but you really did pull it back together, and you finished the year with a win, I guess, for the maybe second over the line at Big Sugar, but a win on the Lifetime Grand Prix podium. So yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, it was a good day for me. Thanks. Well, it wasn't actually a great day. I had two punches, but it was one of those days where I could, whatever went wrong, I could kind of overcome it. And yeah, I was just a bit possessed, and yeah, it was a special feeling that day to. Yeah, I was annoyed that I didn't win the race. I didn't, outright, but to get maximum points from where I've been in the middle of the year was just blew my mind really. And I started that day wanting to. I think I started the day maybe in 10th or 11th or something, and when I got that puncher, I was like, you know, this is a massive disaster. The whole year has been a failure. But that thought just left me so quick, and as I was plugging the tire, I was like, you know what, this is the last race for the year. Like while I'm here, we're leaving tomorrow. Come home. Like fuck it, I'm just all in. Like I think we were maybe 20 miles into the race or something, and the speed at which I got back to the front group was like I was astounded, and kind of just got back and settled in, and then before I knew it, it was down to like 5 or 6 of us, like the best guys in the Grand Prix pretty much, and again flattered. But it didn't even worry me, I was almost expecting another problem. And yeah, just rode straight back, and then was really good in the final, and just missed out on the overall win. But maximum points was what I was after, So
Did that obviously big motivation? You'd proven that you exist. Oh, sorry, you'd proven you belong at that level. Big motivation to have going back into this year.
For sure. It was. There was a bit of proving to be done. I think, it was a risk to go all in and do that season. So far from home, it's expensive to do. So you need a lot of budget, and you pull budget from wherever you can. And but once you make it there, it's possible to go again and again and again. So it was elation, to kind of had that result and kind of show everyone I was capable of doing it, and prove to myself. I started the year out looking at guys like Keegan and thinking, he's unbeatable. There's not a scenario that I can beat him. But to finish the year like that, and to have beaten him in that sprint, and it just changes the game for me. I think it's that confidence. Now I know I can be there in the finish of certain races. Not all of them, definitely not Leadville or Crusher, these high altitude races, but for sure some of the others, like, they suit me, and I can fight for the win. I think Unbound is a big sort of mark in my calendar from here on in. I know I can compete and be good in those races.
No, it was really great. I think there was a big contingent of us back here in Australia watching along, you and Tasman as well, and it was exciting to see Aussies taking it to the world. So thanks for giving us that to follow as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's been awesome to have. I think there's a lot of interest around gravel racing, and particularly the Grand Prix. I mean, there's a lot of bike tech, and there's a lot of stories to come out of it, especially days when Keegan doesn't win. So hopefully we can bring more people in and keep this show exciting. But yeah, it was also nice to have Tasman there in that last race as well. He had a tough year as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I think for as Australians, like we're used to racing year round pretty much. I think a lot of those guys by October start to get a little tired of it all, and yeah, I think for us it's pretty typical just to keep going. So yeah, we showed that.
So you headed back this year, obviously, and had a really strong start at Sea Otter. Can you tell us about how that day panned out?
Yeah, Sea Otter was great. Like I was saying, I wasn't sure how I'd turn up. You know, we do the best efforts we can to arrive there in top shape, but yeah, it's a scattered kind of preparation, just given the way the summer goes here. And like I say, those guys are preparing out of the winter and just a nice smooth. They don't really race until March, April anyway. So it's a challenge to be super good for that. But I was really happy with how I went. I prepared because last year the start is just so hard there. Like it's on this racetrack and you go up the hill and it's just full gas and you basically turn into a bit of single track, which is single track for the next sort of 10 minutes. And if you're in a bad position, then the leaders can get away and you actually won't ever get them back. But this year, I think I entered maybe in third or fourth. I was great in the start and I'd really worked on that for this race actually. And yeah, I just settled into a good position in this sort of lead group and yeah, really just felt quite comfortable the whole race until we kind of started popping guys out the back and guys like Matt Beers, who had come off the Cape Epic win. He was really strong that day. And yeah, once they started firing towards the end, you know, it got hard, obviously, and I actually had to let this maybe 7 or 8 go ahead, and you know, but I know the run back to the finish there is like really lumpy, and yeah, it's the hardest kind of part of the course. So I think I've matured a lot in my racing, and in the past, you know, you just hang on till you can't hang on anymore and you explode. But now I've done it long enough. I know when my body is kind of ready to just let that lead, or you know, if it's getting uncomfortable, I can back off, and you just have to keep that faith that you're going to come back and you're going to ride through some riders, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I think Beers attacked in this kind of sandy section out the back of the course, and I let them go, and in the run to the finish, I was just passing guys after guys after guys, you know. Yeah, so it's fifth and on the edge of the podium there is really good result, I think. Those guys are world class. And yeah, I think one day, maybe in the next year or two, I'd like to fight with them at the front of those races, but we'll stand on the podium with them, or for sure it was a successful start to the year.
Yeah, great. And then you obviously that's the first race of the Lifetime, but it's on in April, and then there's a bit of a gap. So you came back to Australia in that period before Unbound?
Yeah, I went and did Belgium off ride in San Diego the week after Sea Otter. And then flew home the day after that, and then went out to Wagga for our marathon national champs. And the week after that, I went to WA for 7, the gravel race over there, the UCR race. So it was a busy 4 weeks, and then I had 2 weeks here, I think, trained full gas, and then got on the plane back to Kansas, and yeah, was into Unbound. So it was nice to come home, but it wasn't relaxing for sure. It was racing and training, but no, it was a great start to the year, and that block could not have gone much better, to be honest. Yeah, I was really pleased, and then to come back and have some success here and just hit some target races really well, and just feeling good, you know, fit and yeah, confident. It was nice. Again, yeah, back for Unbound. Yeah,
it's a huge commitment, isn't it, to have that lifestyle? I bet your daughter's happy when you come home.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I love hanging out with her. She's so fun, you know. Yeah, it is tough being away from her for sure, but like whenever I get the chance, you know, whenever you're coming back from those kind of trips, it's like you really appreciate your time together, and yeah, it's it's a joy to return to her. That's for sure.
And a bit of a budding cyclist I see on Instagram sometimes.
Oh, I mean, I think she's just very lazy. She probably has known how to ride a bike for 6 or 8 months, but the other day I just convinced her with a chocolate or something that she needs to ride without training wheels, and after a little discussion, she apparently knew how to ride within a couple of minutes. So yeah,
Yeah,
but now she's off.
I've got to get mine going. She's still on the balance bike. We've got to get her some pedals, I reckon, and get her
Yeah,
going.
she had training wheels and they're just terrible, I think. And she refused to take them off. She actually stopped even riding the bike. She went back to her balance bike, but then I don't know. One day I was fed up with it and said, "We're taking them off. Here's a treat." I can't remember what it was, and we got her riding, and she was off and running. Yeah, literally, she learned how to ride within a couple of minutes, and she can do it. No worries now.
Kids are amazing. I see them like if you go skiing, you see all like the 2-year-olds just gunning it down. Yeah, it's something to behold. All right, I think that brings us on to Unbound. It was a big build up, obviously, and can you take us through your day out there? I guess like maybe in the lead up, like what does the week before Unbound sort of look like?
Yeah, it's really busy actually. It's I don't know, the way we race now and our kind of job say involves a lot of extra bits and pieces, video pieces that we're filming for, or bike parts, or new bikes, or this sort of thing. Different partners. I'm very fortunate now. I've got some partners in the US, which is really nice. But it means sort of catching up with them and doing bits and pieces, which is nice to do, obviously, but it just fills the days. And it's good that kind of race, or your preparation training and stuff is done in the weeks prior, and the week of is pretty light anyway. So you can kind of fit this stuff in, but yeah, it's busy, like there's an expo down in town, which is just pumping all week, and different things happening there, signings and whatnot. Some of the signings we do are pretty quiet, but the one there actually is insane. Like the security are taking the tables from underneath us, literally to stop people lining up. It's crazy to think for gravel racing, but no, it's big. It's big out there, and it's busy. Like the week is busy. There's dinners each night, with different people, and it does get hard because it's the actual race day itself. It starts at 3 a.m. Because the start is at before 6, 10 to 6, I think. So it's a massive day, and the day before the race even is like draining, because if you want to fit in some training, plus prepare your nutrition, your all that sort of stuff, you need to spare everything pretty much. There's 2 aid stops in Unbound, so it's 330 kilometers. There's an aid, say roughly every 120 or 150k, but you need a lot of stuff at each one. We have spares of everything. Shoes, seats, literally just have to be so onto all that stuff. So it's busy, and then I don't know, it's a hectic week, and by the time you get to the night before the race, is like it's a bit daunting, because you just like, I don't know, you've been on the go so much, and then it's just like you're gonna have 4 or 5 hours sleep, and then whatever happens on the race day, you're in for like a massive day.
So obviously that's a pretty big week, and then what's it like on the start line there? Like a bit of calm before the storm, perhaps, or you're looking around at your competitors trying to suss them all out, see who's looking good?
Yeah, it's an eerie vibe because it's still dark when we arrive there, and I had a call. They call up like the top 5 in the overall of the series, and then the top 5 from last year, and then like some notable riders like Mohoric or whatever. So it's and then the media is crazy, like and the flashes, because it's still dark. It's like the flashes are just, I don't know. It's a crazy vibe, and it's eerie to kind of be standing there with so many other people who you just know you're in for just a massive day. Like, yeah, it's something else. I think if anyone can get over there for that race and take it on and just experience it, um, yeah, it's just a weird feeling to know what you're in for. It's like you're all in for this hellish kind of march through the hills out there, and you know that you're going to be out there for the whole day. I mean, the best are out there for the whole day, so most are going to be out there into the night, you know. Like I was saying, we went out for this dinner actually, and it went super late, and we didn't come out of the pub or whatever till midnight actually, and there was like so many people still in kit finishing the race, and it was just crazy to think, you know, that how long ago that started, you know.
That'd be me if I ever do it for sure.
Like,
It's like,
but it's so cool. It just the place is just filled with people who have taken on this crazy, crazy challenge. You know, it's yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, on the start line for us, it's yeah, it gets down to business pretty fast, and then you know, you know that it's going to be just a hectic bunch of 150 guys for the next few hours, and you're going to be fighting for hours on end, and that's exactly what it was.
it's amazing how big it is and the coverage. Like here in Australia, sort of, it feels like quite a niche thing. Gravel is already, like, even amongst the cycling community, it seems like people are sort of just getting into it, just discovering it. I tell people I have a gravel cycling podcast, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, isn't it just mountain biking or road? And yet here we are over in the States, and it's the biggest cycling event they have on the calendar. So it's yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we get to here in Australia.
Yeah, it will. I mean, we never reached the heights of the US in anything really. It's just a population thing, and but for sure, there's events that are pushing the boundaries here, and yeah, we'll see a rise. And there's obviously I'm in the competitive kind of part of the sport for sure. I'm striving to be the best and to make a career and continue a career. So that's one thing, but yeah, there's scope for so many other aspects of gravel racing and riding for sure. And the good thing is for Australia, we have great roads, and we have yeah, there's the roads are out there, so we just need to take the people to them.
So I absolutely was not planning on following along at Unbound. I sort of knew that the Lifetime Grand Prix were doing some Instagram stories, that sort of thing. I was like, oh well, I think it started about 8 or 9 o'clock here in Melbourne. So I sort of followed the start and then went to bed. And my 9-month-old daughter was super sick, and she just did not sleep at all. So I think I was up at 3 o'clock, and I was like, well, if I've got to be up at 3 o'clock, at least I've got a good gravel race to watch. So it was actually really cool, kind of following along. Like, it's the best coverage of a gravel cycling event I've ever seen, and I think from what I saw online, people were really stoked on it as well. Like, you really got a sense of following the race like it was a TV broadcast almost. So yeah, it was great to follow along. Obviously, it's a long day. How was it out there for you? What sort of things happened to you that day?
I mean, it was challenging. I mean, I was feeling really good. I was on a really good. I knew when going there, I was in pretty good shape. I just felt good about it, and I fought for position really well. So basically, it starts with 150 of the pros, um, and the women are 10 minutes after us, I think, or 15. And it's just the 150 guys. They're all decent riders, obviously. So, and there's nothing in the first 100 or so kilometers that is hard enough to kind of split it up. So basically, you've got to just fight with 150 guys for 3 or more hours to be just. You get to the front, and then you get kind of shuffled back, and you get to the front, shuffled back, and there's all kinds of different riders who are different kind of respects, say, in the group, and it's just carnage. But I found myself in a great spot. I was always around Mohoric or Keegan or guys like that all the time. You know, whenever I look up, they'd be there. So I knew I was always in a good spot. Um, and then yeah, gnarliest part of the course, there was a road out the back of the course called Little Egypt, the section, and I knew where it was. We'd like mark everything out, and you know what kilometers to be at the front or be wary, or you know, as a climb or whatever, this sort of thing. Um, and I'm in this on a climb, actually, second wheel, Keegan in front, me in second, and pretty comfy. And he just ducks around a rock at the last minute, and I slam my front wheel straight into it on a climb. Both my levers like slammed down, and I knew I'd hit the rim. It doesn't. It's not always terminal with the when you hit the rim with a. I have a insert in my tire, so sometimes you can hit it and it's fine. But this time was not. So I kept riding up the climb with a flat tire for a bit, still in the front of the race. But I knew I had to like stop and sort it out. But yeah, major frustration just knowing that I had myself in the best spot. You know, I wasn't hidden in the pack. Had pretty good visibility. Second wheel, you can't be much better. I mean, you don't really want to be on the front. But yeah, it was really frustrating. I pulled over and yeah, plugged it and gassed it. Got going again. Got back to the leaders for the first time, and then I think actually that plug came out, and then I went back and did the same thing, plugged it again. That happened another time. Got back each time. The third time I got back, there was a group of maybe 15 or 20 guys that had been kind of distance, and I just remember just going straight past them. You know, not even one of them was interested in coming with me. I caught some guys that I knew in there, and they were just shaking their heads. I knew then that I was strong and I was on a good day. Passing guys like that so fast, so deep into the race, and I got back again pretty quickly to the leaders. Yeah, but from then it was like I wasn't going to stop again, and my tire went down again. So I think I must have like hit both sides of the rim. I'd plugged several times in the right hand side, but I couldn't really see the hole in the left, but maybe it was there as well. Yeah, so now I'm riding on the rim or the insert in the rim, which actually helps quite a lot. It means that you can kind of, without, if you keep your weight off the front wheel as much as you can sort of stay off the rim enough. But I mean, we're riding the biggest gravel race in the world with the fastest riders in the world. We're going quick in some rough sections, so it's hard to like, it's hard to do that. And yeah, and I'm like trying to hang with these guys, and my goal was just to make it to the second A where I could get another wheel with the front, change the wheel, and then do what I could to the finish. By this time, I rode the rim for 70 kilometers.
Yeah, it's nuts.
With these guys going full gas attacking and this sort of thing.
So how many more watts do you reckon you're putting out with a flat tire?
I don't. It didn't seem insane, the watts. It was more like I couldn't really do the corners fast.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I couldn't do the rough sections. I had to like go to the back of the group and like pretty much let them go in the rough sections and then chase back on. Same in the corners. I'd be off the back out of every corner. And then obviously I can't get out of the seat and it did get quite pinchy with the climb, so I'm like climbing in the seat. Yeah, like climbing, you know, next to Greg Van Avermaet, and I've got a flat tire. I'm like, this is not fair, you know. But yeah, that was my goal. After that all happened, I was like, okay, I need to like, I knew I could salvage something from the day because it's so long. And I remember last year after I had to abandon at the first aid, my back is cooked after riding in one gear for 100 Ks, 150 Ks, and but I remember the beauty of it was I got to go to that second aid, and I remember seeing really good riders coming through there, like 7 hours into the race, cooked, and like losing 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour on the front. So I knew with the shape I had and the feelings I had that day that if I was smart and I got the wheel changed and just like stayed calm and got my nutrition in and got settled, then from the last aid to the finish was 80 kilometers or so. I knew I'd be able to salvage something from the day just because I knew I had plenty of fight left. and because of the wheel, we had to change the wheel, and a lot of the guys actually didn't stop in this second aid, so they got the gap, and there was a lot of small groups chasing back to the front, and I just had to stay calm and like let them go, get my food in, just just settle a bit after what I'd kind of been through, and just I achieved the goal of getting to the last aid with the front, and I think I felt like pretty happy with that, and yeah, get a wheel, get settled, and then kind of push on for the last third and kind of last phase of the day. And yeah, I rode back to 15th in the race. I think I caught up with Pete Stetner, and we were actually closing on Keegan in the last, 5Ks of the race, which was crazy. I remember just passing guys like they were standing still. It was a good feeling. But yeah, I had obviously massive disappointment from kind of what had happened. But yeah, I salvaged. I was seventh in the Grand Prix standings, and yeah, 15th in the race, and yeah, it was a good salvage, and it was something I could be pretty proud of myself with, and yeah, good for next year, I guess.
Yeah, it must give you confidence going back. I think I posted on my Insta story before the race, can Trekky win this? And yeah, a lot of support from my following anyway. So, but obviously you've got the belief now that this is something that you can win.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think I can on the right day, but it's also unbound. Like even when I was lining up this year, I'm like, and anything can happen. I mean, anything can happen in a 3 hour race. So if you're racing for 10 hours, there's just so many things that can go wrong, and you have to just keep that in mind, I guess. But also, you can negate a lot of that with good decisions. And I went to smaller tires, and that was my fault. So it's a
I want
matter
to
of
get onto that. Yeah, the tech. I think one of the one of the biggest pieces of content maybe to come out of Unbound this year was Dylan Johnson's video that he did about his bike setup, and he obviously went to the nth degree to try and optimize it. And he's been a big advocate of wide tires, and that seemed to be a trend this year. I think Lockie had maybe a 50 on the front. I don't think he could fit a 50 in the rear, but yeah, definitely it seemed like people were going wider, and in an event that seems like it's so dependent on luck to a degree, but trying to avoid flat seems like the biggest thing in terms of getting a good result on the day. Like, what tires did you opt for? And as you say, you don't think it was wide enough, perhaps?
yeah, it was. When I went there, I was set on running 50 mil Pirellis, but the thing with Emporia is, if it rains at all, the place is just a mess, and
Mm,
there's sections that you won't even pass with a 50 mil tire on.
you need the
Like
mud
we
clearance, right?
the day before the race, the morning before the race, 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., we were out on a section. We were going to ride the last 50 Ks, and we literally traveled 200 meters, and we couldn't pass the section. So
Mm.
my team manager had the same tires, the same bike, but with 45 mil tires on. I had 50s, and he was able to go a lot further. Um, the rain has stopped for now, for that from then on, pretty much. But in the afternoon, we were kind of tossing up whether, some friends of ours from KDEX drove the last 80K or something, and they were like, no, it's dry. Um, Dry again, which, to be honest, if you see the videos, it's so hard to believe that, like, yeah, we traveled 200 meters in this mud that morning, less than 24 hours before the race. But in hindsight, I could have had mountain bike tires or the 50s, which I think the 50s were a good move for me. The Pirelli H, it's fast enough, it's pretty big, and it would have essentially stopped me hitting my rim and getting that puncture in the first place. But yeah, I was just nervous for the mud, and
Mm.
while yeah, okay, that one section that we'd reconned was dry apparently. How could I be sure that there wasn't it's 330 Ks, how can I be sure that there's not a section out there that's going to be similar and hasn't dried out? So that was where we went wrong. Um, yeah, and this north route, so last year it was the south route, which is it's a bit smoother. But the north route it's actually not insanely rough. Like it would be something that we would, on a race here, would travel through without probably talking about, but um, I don't know. It is a different beast, Unbound, and you're traveling a lot higher speed because you've got, yes, especially in the front of the race, there's 70 or 80 guys once you get to this section. You're fighting at the front. It's high speed. You can't see the dust. You can't see because it's a double track and you can't see in front of you. So it's yeah, that was kind of where it went wrong, and it was a shame. But yeah, I was nervous from the mud, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy place out there, and it dries quickly as it gets very muddy quickly. So
I'm not going to ask you about your bike because I think if you're interested to see what Trekkie rode out at Unbound, I think Ben Delaney's got a video up on YouTube, but I think it's one that we can't quite talk about yet. But I guess the revolt that you've had in the last few years, it's obviously got that adjustable geometry, and like the longer wheelbase allows you to run a bigger tire. Was that like how have you traditionally set up that bike? Have you gone
yeah,
long with the
I
bigger
always have
tires?
it in the long setting.
Yeah.
And usually I do run bigger tires than everyone. Like
Because it's got good clearance, right? Like
it's
it's
got
pretty,
great
yeah.
clearance. Got great clearance. I actually think it's more stable and I like it better in the long position anyway. But yeah, if you have it long, even with 45 mil tires, it's still got better clearance than most, which is nice. Um, yeah, but the difference between a 45 mil and a 50 mil, even in the long setting, is a lot. Like, and it was so evident. Like I say, we had both setups and tried both setups the day before in the mud, and it's pretty unique. Like you don't really need you. Most people aren't going to be riding in those sort of conditions, and I don't know. I've never seen mud like that anywhere else other than
Mm-hmm.
Emporia. But yeah, when you get to it, if you can get through it better than someone else, then it's a game changer. Like had it have rained more, um, that's totally the race in that one section. That's the whole race. But it wasn't. So I remember traveling through there by myself in the last, because that was the last 50K of the race. I remember just going through there at about 50K an hour on the flat, just thinking like what it was yesterday. Um, it's not the same. It just turns like this hard pack, and it's super nice. But yeah, it's a funny beast, Sunbound, and you have to get everything right, and I didn't. So
No, it's another lesson for next year, I guess.
yeah, it's good learning. I mean, you're always going to learn something from that race. Any of these longer races, bigger ones, there's so much to learn, and yeah, you'll never stop. I mean, I'm sure people who have done it 10 times are still changing things every year.
I wanted to ask you about the pit stops. Like that was one of the most interesting things. Oh, the aid stations, obviously. I call them pit stops because that's what it kind of looked like on, watching along. It's almost got to a Formula One sort of level of, everyone, the rider comes in and the whole team jumps on. They've all got a specific task to do. Is that something that you practice in the days going up to the event?
Yeah, not so much practice. It's a lot talked about, a lot. It's very organized. I think yeah, you have to be, and I think next year we've got some kind of new ideas, which hopefully we'll be able to get some gains from, um, because now it's so competitive now that um, that's a point in the race where people see they can take an advantage and make a difference. Because we're arriving at the aid station with 30 guys or whatever. But we still need to whittle the group down, and there's like Lockie and that don't stop. They just find a way to get different things from different people spread out. But honestly, they're so hectic in there. It's so many people. Like the aid station actually go for probably a kilometer, and there's just people everywhere,
Mm.
and it's very difficult. So um, stopping is like the kind of easiest option because you're not going to miss anything. But there's things we can do maybe to make it better and faster. And yeah, I mean, out of the first one, even I had a pretty good stop, and I was still um, Lawrence and Dam, and I still had to chase quite hard to get back to the group. Which this is all matches that the guys who are out the front, you know, haven't had to burn.
Yeah. Well, what's up?
So yeah, you can fine tune it for sure. Um, it's interesting though. It's just hectic. You're trying to because it's the best thing to do is take all your things and do everything. You know, leave your chain, take all your nutrition, have some snacks, whatever. You wash your face, change your glasses. But that's like kind of the most diligent way to do it. But if you've got to then chase, then you've spent energy doing that. So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to get right.
So while we're on the topic of tech, I was interested to get your take on the Defy. I see you've decked it out for gravel racing, maybe some of those faster events. We're talking obviously Giant's endurance road bike here, but it takes a 38 mil tire, I think, and Giant weren't pushing this as sort of an all road bike at launch, but it was one that I sort of looked at and thought, that'd make for a pretty good all road bike, and you seem to be of the same opinion, perhaps.
Yeah, it's when I decided to take it to Seven, the race in WA, it was a bit iffy. I hadn't seen the course, but you ask enough people enough questions, and you kind of get a good gauge. You can't just ask one person because one person's perception of what's rough or what's smooth or what's fast or what's slow is different to yours. So yeah, I think I'm pretty good now at like finding out information on different events and from different people, and I had enough information I thought to like take it and take a bit of a risk with it. But it's light, and the climbs at that race were really the standout. That's where the race was won or lost. And yeah, you can fit pretty decent tires on it. Obviously, you don't want any mud, but yeah, we don't get so bad mud here, I think. But yeah, it's fast, and I can get a good position on it. Nice and aero, and yeah, lightweight. It's an option for sure, and yeah, it's always going to be in my uh, consideration when I'm preparing for a race. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sort of keen to have a go on the sort of mixed terrain riding sort of rides. I think it'd be a good bike.
Yeah, I think for comfort, like I don't know, I always like to push people towards a larger tire, like 45 mil or whatever, which obviously you can't fit in that. But I think it might, if it gets rough, then it's going to ruin someone's experience. But um, yeah, I don't know. Like I get a lot of questions about it because people, I think, want to just have one bike, and don't want to get caught up in the marketing to get a gravel bike. But honestly, I think my Revolt is as fast as you know a road bike. Essentially, it's not much different, especially at a lesser level. If you've got lesser goals and that sort of thing. But yeah, just for like my if I go to that race Seven, I've got a big goal to win the race, and if I can take a lighter bike on the climbs and compromise the descents, but I can navigate down okay. I'm not, I'm aware that I have to limit myself in the descents. I can't push. I've got small tires and a bit of a leaner kind of setup. I'm really aware of that, and I can make the most of it and get through. But maybe if your goals are different and you want to enjoy the race or ride, and I think it's very like goal dependent and what you want to get out of an event or a ride, I guess.
And just one last one on the topic of tech. I put the call out for some listener questions, so this has come in from a listener. Heated gloves or Doona booties? You can only pick one.
Uh, oh, it's hard. I think heated gloves because yeah, even doing the booties, they're good, but they're not game changing. Unfortunately, I thought they were, but the heated gloves are a game changer. Especially like it's you can ride in any conditions with heated gloves, and it's okay.
A couple other questions came in. Some of them quite good ones. So obviously we saw Matej Mohoric come down to Lifetime or down to Unbound this year. He had a bit of a rough day, didn't finish, but obviously that brought a lot of attention to the race. Like, do you have an opinion? Like, do you think it's good to see these World Tour guys come down, and you're happy to race against them? And do you think it's sort of good for the sport, or is it a bit of a, I guess, a threat to the established gravel scene?
No, I think it's good. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him continue in the race, like if he didn't have his troubles. Um, but it's not unexpected that what happened to him is what happened. Like I think it happened to all three of them, that his two teammates as well. It's good, I think. Like I think it's good. I would like to see these guys. I obviously if we get a full peloton of, we don't want it just to become like the road peloton because there's unique races and stories within the gravel scene, and I don't think that's going to happen anyway. But it's really cool. It brings the profile up. I mean, it's always been the biggest gravel race in the world, and it's with guys like this coming, it's just going to stay that way. Um, and it's going to be more competitive. I think the level like is not so insanely different when it comes to a race like that. Maybe in the start line, you're thinking, oh, it's Mateo Mohoric. He's so much better than us or me at least, but it's not the case in that kind of race. For sure, in a tour stage, yes, but in Unbound, a race like that, it's the levels just kind of like come a bit more even, and for sure, we were all ready to compete with him, and yeah, it would have been interesting to see how he would have got through, but he's definitely wasn't. I remember one of the climbs early on. It was he was in the front, Keegan and me, and I heard him say to kind of Keegan and myself like, "Should we go? Should we split it?" And this is like, I sort of felt like it wasn't so hard at this point yet, but he's obviously thinking, yeah, this is getting hard. We could maybe potentially make it split here and go harder, but um, so it was nice to be involved in his kind of with him and within the race. And I actually heard him. He was voice memoing to his pit crew and before the first aid, and he said, "It's been quite hard to now. Like I think it will split up soon." And I felt to myself like maybe I don't know. Like I hadn't felt it'd be that hard yet.
It's probably a
But it
different,
was
quite
nice
a
to get his.
different, yeah, probably quite a different physiology, right? Like he probably sits in the wheels for 280 k's at Milan San Remo and just puts out crazy efforts at the end. Whereas like a gravel race, you're on the pedals the whole time because of the
Yeah,
terrain and the rolling resistance. So it's probably you guys probably have bigger diesel engines than a lot of the World Tour guys.
yeah, it's an interesting crossover, and it's cool to have guys like that come and have a go. And I mean, it's not just him. There's like probably 10 or 15 other guys with road credentials that are really good, and yeah, that are there fighting. And yeah, I mean, there's a guy who's third in like cyclocross world, and he's like always just behind Wout and Vanderpoel. It's like there's just these guys who are really accomplished and really good, really high level, and it's cool that we're able to race with them. And yeah, I think it's great for our sport, and yeah, I don't feel threatened or anything. I think it's just there's going to be more and more of it because the popularity is growing, and um, we have it's getting more professional, and there's more opportunities. So.
So you're back in Australia now for a bit of a stint. We've got the gravel. We've got the gravel nationals coming up this weekend down in Tassie. Are you going to be there?
Yep, I'm gonna head down. I haven't done that before. The Devil's Cardigan. The guys are pretty keen. Gareth from the Devil's Cardigan was pretty keen to have me there. So yeah, I don't know. I've never been so appealed to be in Tasmania in
Tasmania in June. Yeah.
June. But they actually, it looks like they have an awesome event, and no, I want to go and I want to race for the title for sure. And it's been nice that I was able to get back and yeah, be comfortable and get there on a good time schedule without having to do any crazy travel or anything. So for sure, I'm excited, and I think the route looks good. It's going to be challenging for me. It's a challenging day, I think. Yeah, the course is probably not 100% for me, but I think I can definitely be there and yeah, in the fight.
It'd be nice to take the Aussie national jersey back for the second half of the Lifetime this year. I think Connor's pretty keen to hold on to it, so he's been prepping hard. He told me, but yeah, I think you're a good shot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of athletes who I think um, the course probably suits. Like it's less traditional of kind of a long gravel race. It's like three climbs, yeah, long climbs. It's suited to someone coming from the road who's can do good watts per kilo. But it's still gravel racing, and that's the beauty of it. And there's you have to get down the other side of the hill too, and yeah, the running is always exciting if it's rough, and yeah, anything can happen. So, but I'm in good shape. I feel good. Yeah, I've managed to hold on to the form pretty well and not book anything so far. But I'm looking forward to a break after Derby and yeah, getting ready for the second half of the year.
Have you got any plans for sort of tackling more adventure sort of endurance racing, like a transcontinental or maybe a cloud ride a bit more closer to home, something a bit longer, multi-day?
Uh, not so not so adventure based. What I want to do is take the record from Perth to Sydney,
Yeah,
but with support. So I'm not so interested in self support or really taking my body. Um, I think those adventure things, you're taking your body to the limit, but you're also taking you're having to be very uncomfortable and yeah, making I don't know. I feel like there's more risk in that for long term damage, but something like a supported attempt is something that's definitely on my radar. Yeah.
cool. All right, Trekkie, thanks for coming on. It's been really great to have you and get your insights into sort of the real top end of gravel racing, anywhere in the world. So yeah, really appreciated you coming on. Before we go, what are your aspirations for the rest of the Lifetime? What are you hoping to get out of the rest of the year?
I mean, yeah, I want to just like settle for this period and then really hit the last three events. Schwammerton, the mountain bike race, the Rad, and Big Sugar in October. That's where I can see myself really jumping up the standings. I'd like to win another race or win a race for sure. Yeah, and climb up the standings. I think maybe top five is achievable. But like I say, last year, I seventh, but really solid, and anywhere in the top 10 in the Grand Prix is good going, in my opinion. So yeah, I hope to be fighting in the last three races of the year and really put a focus on them.
No, excellent. Best of luck. We'll be following along and maybe a chance to see you down at the Dirty Warnie to finish off 2024.
Yeah, I'll probably be there. It's a big ask to get going again after the year and do such an epic, but I like what Karen does, and yeah, it's a big event for Oz, so I'll probably yeah, you'd probably see me there. But yeah, it's a tall order.
No, thanks, mate. Thanks for coming on, and yeah, best of luck for the rest of the year.
No worries.